All right, welcome to football today, March 29th, 2024. Just a couple days away from draft month. No Rose today. His internet is not working on the day of the MLB kickoff. So I'm here with Justin Penik. How we doing, man? Ready to two-man this thing?
Oh, I'm ready to two-man this. Happy baseball opening day to those who celebrate. For me, that just means that we're one step closer to the NFL draft. I mean, is there 31 days in March? Bobby, we're getting cooking, we're getting heated up, and the draft is approaching. Still got some good amount of NFL news we could talk about. We can't just segment it and BS our way through the show. We still got a decent amount of news to talk about, and
I think this first topic is like kind of a huge news, and you know we'll get into all of it. So sorry that you couldn't make it here, Chris Rose. So first topic, Justin. NFL Network's Tom Pelissero reported that both the Cowboys and Dak Prescott are good with him going into 2024 without a contract extension. Dak will be a free agent at the end of the season. Is Dallas insane to go about biz this way with its starting quarterback?
I mean, I'm going to say yes for right now, and it's not even a conversation for me of, is Dak Prescott the right quarterback for the Cowboys, and can Dak Prescott win in the postseason? Because obviously that's TBD, and that's something that Dak has to answer himself and has not been answered at this point. But Bobby, man, you look at his cap hit this year, it's 21.2% of the cap. It's $55 million. He has 4 void years after this year. But are the Dallas Cowboys seriously going to pay Dak Prescott $40 million? That is what the cap number is next year for a void year. Are they going to seriously pay Dak Prescott $40 million to not be the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys next year? That's the question for me. Like, you and Rose have been talking about his performance in the playoffs, and I agree with that. I don't think the Cowboys are going to pay $40 million for him not to be their quarterback next year.
Even if they extended him, eventually they would have to do that because he's not going to play forever. So on paper, it makes no sense at all. On paper, but I kind of commend Jerry Jones for, doing this, honestly, because last year he finished third in MVP voting, had his best season. He's been a really good QB for a long time. Like, he deserves the big contract that he has, and he's going to deserve one next year, no matter whether it's coming from the Dallas Cowboys or another team. But at some point with this Dallas Cowboys team, we have to judge them off of what happens in the playoffs. Like, they've essentially become a meme of, in the playoffs, they just end up blowing it. No matter who they're playing, no matter what happens. They've lost to 2 wild card teams and then the 49ers the last 3 years. They've had 20 points in the first 3 halves combined in those games. And then Dak has 5 interceptions in those 3 playoff losses. Like, they have all the talent in the world. They've built a really good roster. So, well, again, on paper, it makes no sense. But I kind of commend the Cowboys for being like, you know what? We're just not getting to the Super Bowl. And we have a roster that is talented enough to do it. At what point do you decide to make this is a change that we need to make?
Now, here's the thing. This isn't just a Dak Prescott issue. This is a Dallas Cowboy issue. Like, it was the same thing with Tony Romo, where I could make an argument that even those, like, that 2014 roster is so insane. That was such an insane team where they didn't even need Tony Romo to really do anything, because that was the year that DeMarco Murray went off, and that offensive line had, Hall of Famers on it and everything. So this is clearly, it's a Dallas Cowboy problem. It's not just a Dak Prescott problem.
But here's the difference: is Tony Romo is did Dez catch it or drop it away from the NFC Championship in a year that they did win a playoff game. And
Dak has been bad.
There was some low moments in the playoffs for Tony Romo, but with Dak, it's consistent. It is consistent unless they are playing, an under $500 team in the playoffs that they do this.
But then what's the approach and what's the plan? I mean, that is the only rebuttal that I give, because the Cowboys are going to win at least 10 games this year, right? And then even if they get eliminated in the wild card, you're still not in a position where you can draft the quarterback. Are you going to have $40 million as a cap hit for Dak Prescott as a void year? And then are you going to either have to trade up for a guy? Are you going to try and find the next Dak Prescott and develop a guy? Or are you going to trade free agency somebody? Again, it just doesn't, like you said, it doesn't make sense on paper. And that is my main argument.
Well, here's the thing: they can play out this year,
See where they're
and
at.
then if they're like, hey, we want to do this. There's no better plan than this. Then you can get a contract done, and then move that void money to where it's not hitting you next year before free agency. Now he could just hit free agency, and you're forced to franchise tag him, and then you're in a lot of trouble there. But to me, it's just like it's a tough decision for Dallas. And it's even like from me, us on the outside, or any GM on the outside looking in, being like, yeah, I kind of understand this. Like, they just have not been able to perform in the playoffs, and it is very much a Dak Prescott issue. Like he's been very bad in these playoff games. But when you're in it, right, and that's the guy that's been there for a long time, and you see him be good, it's very easy to be like, you know what, we're gonna go make a go at it next year. So I commend them for having the balls to do this and see, like, and play this year out, see what happens, then maybe decide that it's a time for a fresh start for the Dallas Cowboys, right? If it doesn't go, you fire Mike McCarthy, you bring in a new head coach, and then let him decide on what he wants to do with the quarterback, the future of the quarterback position. So to me, they're just, it's almost a meme every single year that it's the exact same conversation with the Dallas Cowboys. Last year with the Packers, I tweeted before that game, because like you felt they're going to do it again, aren't they? And I feel like there's no excuse. They are more talented. They have Dak coming off of his best season. They have an attacking defense. There is no excuse for them to lose this game, and they were getting blown out in that game.
It was bad. That was straight up. It was straight up embarrassing. Yeah, man, I'm just a big is the grass greener on the other side, and the road to replace Dak Prescott is not. And the thing why it's so difficult is because we're just talking about playoffs, but the regular season's really good, and he's a really stable, good quarterback in the NFL. Like really, really good. I mean,
But here's the thing: they don't win the big games in the regular season either. Like,
right.
We gave them their flowers this year for beating the Eagles, and then we just the Eagles just aren't a good team anymore.
Right. Now that's the thing. Like, if people in the Cowboys organization, because we're talking about this and we're not there, we're not in the building, blah blah blah. If people in the Cowboys organization are doing this because they're finally seeing, and there's enough of a sample size to say, you know what, maybe this guy just doesn't got it, and just doesn't have it in big moments. And not only obviously you can see it in the performance, and you can see it on paper with the numbers, but now they're seeing it in the building of they can see how he prepares for those big games. Is it different? That's the one thing where it's like, I don't know, I'm not in the building, and maybe we're Dak Prescott during those big games and during those big moments. Maybe they've looked at it and they've said, yeah, he kind of does, quiver under the pressure a little bit. So that is the one thing where I am open to, if they're identifying that in big games he just does not step up and they can even see it. That is where I'm open to, like, all right, yeah, then you shouldn't be paying this guy top dollar, $40 million, be the $40 million quarterback, top 10 quarterback that you should be paying him as.
And I still think it's likely he does get extended with the Cowboys. But I have no problem with them blaming them. I have no problem with them, like, you know what? We're waiting till after the season.
Yeah.
Because if this happens again, right, then there's no excuse. There's no excuse for them to come up as little as they do in the most important moments, and they just do it year after year. So like I just don't, like, it's, again, on paper it doesn't make sense at all, but in reality it's a guy who's shown up the least in the biggest moments time and time again, and that has to matter. That eventually that has to matter.
Right.
3 years ago, hey, it's gonna figure it out. Guys take time. They don't always figure it out, but he's coming off his best season, and then he does that, and probably has his worst playoff performance, honestly. Like that, you can't continue to, like, this is just what we're going to do, or they're just going to lose in the divisional round every single year.
Yep.
Like, we're just talking about the divisional round. You think this team can put together a 3-4 game, playoff run? Like, they just shown that they haven't been able to do that. Now, I think they should have fired McCarthy. But you know what? McCarthy also got, again, his best season in the NFL out of him too. So you can't just put all the blame on McCarthy, even though they are very repetitive in the things that they run.
Yep.
So it's a very weird spot, because he's a really good quarterback, and if he goes to free agency and hits to another team, that other team should be excited about signing.
Yeah, very excited.
But it's just with Dallas, it's like, it's not working. Something has to change. All right, I'm going to skip this JJ McCarthy thing. I'm just so tired of talking about smoke screens and all this. The next question. Chargers have the 5th pick in the draft.
Time out.
What?
There's one thing I want to talk about McCarthy and with Washington. I want to mention one thing because this has really been on my brain. Let's just say it's real, right? I could see if Adam Peters and if this was the San Francisco 49ers that had the 2nd pick, I could see them liking JJ McCarthy. Adam Peters bragged about drafting Paxton Lynch. They really like Jimmy Garoppolo, and they paid Jimmy G, right? Not saying this is real. We'll have a whole month to talk about quarterbacks and stuff like that. But if it is real, I could see why Adam Peters would like him. But Adam Peters does not have somebody from the Shanahan tree, or even I'll say didn't get Ben Johnson, who I can see them utilizing the middle of the field. And I think that's where JJ McCarthy's strengths, it fits the most, when he's driving the ball towards the middle of the field. Cliff Kingsbury is the complete opposite of utilizing the middle of the field and driving the ball to the middle of the field.
The left sideline. Take your best wide receiver and just put him on the left. Out routes, go ball, out routes.
Terry McLaurin, get ready to learn how to run an out route, buddy. Because that's exactly what DeAndre. It was frustrating, man, to look at both Kyler Murray's spray chart, especially through 2022. 2021, it looked a little bit more diverse, but 2022 and DeAndre Hopkins, if you look on Next Gen, his route tree and where he would run and where they charted him, it's just he would only line up on the left side of the field, and it was just out route. I'm like, this has the potential to be one of the most dynamic QB to wide receiver connections in the NFL. It's the most boring fucking shit ever. So which
is why Jaden Daniels is like a perfect fit, even though Drake May is a better quarterback.
And that's why JJ McCarthy to Cliff Kingsbury makes zero sense. And I'm hoping Washington does it as a Giants fan because I just want McCarthy to be picked before them, so the Giants don't even have that choice. But that is the worst fit in this draft because McCarthy has major questions driving the ball out towards the sideline and his accuracy going to the sideline. And particularly if you look at PFF, he is graded worst when he's throwing to his left. When he's throwing towards the right and when he's throwing towards the center, awesome. A lot of these top quarterbacks are graded very well. But where it gets suspect is when he's throwing to the left in the intermediate and deep part. And you see it on film with the inaccuracy. Sometimes there's not enough touch. Sometimes there's too much mustard. Sometimes the ball is thrown behind him. So that's it. That's all that I want to mention about JJ McCarthy and why specifically him with Cliff Kingsbury is a terrible, terrible fit.
It just feels very much like 2021. The 49ers traded up for Mac Jones, and it being, it's going to happen, and then it didn't happen. So I'll pay attention to some of those smoke screen rumors shit like the week before the draft. I have no more energy to do the quarterback. This team's going to pick this guy until we get there.
But you overall, are you with me in that evaluation of McCarthy and that kind of fit?
Well, yeah, and just the fact that if you took JJ McCarthy over Drake May, you should be fired on the spot. But the Chargers have the 5th pick in the draft, and Jim Harbaugh is definitely a wild card in what he can do. He made a comment that raised a few eyebrows at the league meeting. Play the clip, Jamie. Do you think that's a smokescreen, or is Harbaugh thinking of building a massive O-line to protect his screen? Justin, the Chargers are the trade back team. The issue is that teams don't want to trade up to 5. They want to trade up to 4 to get their hands on whatever 4th quarterback there is. But they're a team that makes so much sense to trade back.
And also, I don't like talking about hypothetical trades that we have no idea that are going to happen or not. And I agree with you. But here's what it comes down to for me, Bobby. Who's the better football player? Marvin Harrison Jr., who could be there, Malik Neighbors, or Joe Alt? Who's a better football player?
I mean, I would say Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors, which is why if they want, and they've invested a lot into that offensive line, even though it's been bad. Rashawn Slater, he obviously missed his 2nd season. Zion Johnson was a 1st-round guard. So wide receiver is a bigger need for them anyways. They lost Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. So if they're there, I would think that they would take a wide receiver, but I think that they want to And maybe they want to take a defensive player too. Like, don't you think they'd be a good fit to trade like maybe a little deeper back in the draft and take a Gabriel Murphy out of Texas and add to that front with Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack as Khalil Mack gets older? They want to run the ball, and they're going to run the ball, and they're going to do it well. Like, Harbaugh teams are always bottom of the league in pass rate. We'll see how the marriage of Herbert and this offense works together. I do think it's going to work well. I think they're going to have a very efficient offense this year under Harbaugh and Greg Roman. You always see the year one bump with those two guys.
Yep.
As and obviously in the run game, pulling guys and stuff. So to me, they're a team that, like, hey, if they're there, they take Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malik Neighbors, whichever one's there. But that's why I feel like they're the perfect trade down team, because like they've got a lot of needs that they need to address, and having those extra picks would help a lot.
Yeah, and really, like my brain doesn't even go to the tackle. It goes to pick 37, where Harbaugh's whole thing about talking about offensive line, prioritizing offensive line, how that's the position group that everybody else feeds off of on the team, and he's right. So people are talking about that with pick 5, but I'm even thinking of pick 37, or if they accumulate other draft picks, like you're saying, if they choose to trade back. Bobby, do you think Jackson Powers Johnson at pick 37, or even Graham Barton, do you think those guys could fall to there? Is that a spot?
I don't know. At first, when we started, I thought that those guys might be available at that spot. The closer we get to the draft, it really seems like those guys are going to be in the first round. Like, I think they're more likely to go, top 20 than top 30.
Right.
But there is guys there in the second round that I think that they can make work. Or if they trade back, then they could take a J.C. Latham, right, who's really good in the run game for Alabama. Would fit that gap scheme perfectly with just the pure power that he has, even though he's not the most athletic guy in the world. But then you have Rashawn Slater, who's protecting the blind side of Justin Herbert. So that's why the Chargers are the wildcard team, because they can go a million different ways, or they can just stay pat and take the second best position, either the second or the first best position player outside of quarterback in the draft too.
Yeah, but I'm not letting Harbaugh's, very, very well said quote about the offensive line. I'm not letting that influence me on what they're going to do at 5, because for me, what it comes down, if they're going to stay at 5, for me, what it comes down to, Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors are much better. They're much better football players than Joe Alt. Pausing.
Yes, but that's why I think they're a trade down opportunity, because
Joe Alt would be right tackle, and that's also the thing. You already have an elite left tackle. You've invested a good amount in the interior, and really, they had Will Clapp, their starting center last year, just signed with the Bills. So really, it would be center that would be the
they've been really bad
need.
outside of Slater. The right tackle that they've put out there has been like worst right tackle play in the NFL. So it is a huge need. I think Justin Herbert is someone who doesn't need elite wide receivers to get it done. We've seen what he's been able to do for guys like Trey Palmer and make him look probably better than what he is. Even Tyler Guyton, that those first couple of years was able to create explosives for Justin Herbert. So I think they could view that as like, hey, we truly want to run the ball and let Justin Herbert not have to carry the load. And when he does throw, it's going to be great, and we're going to get chunk plays. But we truly want to build this thing up in the run game. And it's worked, right? Like, it's worked, whether it's Greg Roman with the 49ers and the Ravens, or Jim Harbaugh with the 49ers and the Michigan Wolverines. They've been able to do this, and they've made their quarterbacks look better than what they are. Well, guess what? If they can do that, and then they also have the quarterback who's amazing, well, then you've got yourself a masterpiece. I mean, Lamar's MVP season was the first year of Greg Roman.
Yeah.
We saw Alex Smith's career get revived. We saw Colin Kaepernick look like a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. We see JJ McCarthy getting pumped up as the second overall pick in the NFL draft. So when you actually get a guy who's that guy for a long time, then I think it gives them a lot of options, and they might just want to, hey, let's build this run game and protect this guy, because he's going to make it work.
Isn't it crazy how good of a coach he is when he's a complete psychopath?
I think
he's a crazy person.
I love it though. I love that. Jim Harbaugh's one of my favorite people in the world. I think we're losing guys like that. Like, losing Bill Belichick to me hurts the NFL. I know everyone likes to, kick him and, oh, you're nothing without Brady. Those guys are able to build winning cultures. It's just, can you get the right players who can buy in for a long, sustained period of time? Because it's going to suck. It's not going to be a lot of fun, but it's going to pay off. So can you get those types of guys in the building?
This next guy, I don't know if he's that type of guy that you want to get in the building that would buy into something like that.
Well, let's talk about it. Jadeveon Clowney is off to the Carolina Panthers to supply some of the rush left when Brian Burns headed to our New York Giants. So Clowney gets $20 million over 2 years. Good deal. It was a decade ago. Clowney was a can't-miss prospect out of South Carolina. How would you grade the career of the 2014 number 1 overall pick, Justin?
It's clearly sarcasm when I said, "Oh, great fit, great team." You know what? Maybe it is a good fit. I guess it's like a
good fit
C?
for the Panthers. It's why isn't Clowney going to a contender? Is my question.
Well, he wants $20 million over 2 years. When's the last time he signed a multi-year deal? A C? I mean, he's been on a ton of teams. He was the number 1 pick. Never eclipsed 10 sacks. His most QB hits in a season is 21. I think he did that twice. I was going to ask this to you and Rose. Obviously, I don't. You're a little older than me, but you weren't into the draft back then. Was his tape at like South Carolina that impressive, or was he just kind of known and really hyped up for that one big hit that he had versus Michigan?
His last year, it very much seemed like he was taking the year off and he wasn't playing at full speed in order to protect his body to be the number 1 overall pick. Like that was a real thing coming out. And then, so it has been disappointing, right? Like Khalil Mack from the same draft has been a far and away better player. So it's been disappointing, but he's still been a really good player, outside of a couple down years. Now he's coming off of a career year at 31 years old.
Yeah.
I truly am surprised the win now team didn't do this. Like you say, it's a multi-year, but 2 years, $20 million. That's a bargain when we look at what the Donnell Hunters and such, who again are better players, are getting around the NFL. Like, I don't like the Mike Williams signing for the Jets, and this is why, right? Like, and I know he met with the Jets, but don't you think this would have been a much better deal for the Jets than signing Mike Williams?
I don't know, man. It seems like there's a year where, 2021 with Cleveland, Clowney had 9 sacks, and then in 2022 he had 2, and then he went to a new team with Baltimore.
2022 was pretty. They were a pretty dysfunctional team at that point, and now Clowney was part of that. He's like one of my favorite quotes of all time from Clowney was like, "This staff chooses favorites, like Myles Garrett over me." It's like, yeah, he's the best player,
bro,
on defense in the NFL. I would assume that they set things up for him better.
Yeah. 2019 and 2020, he had a combined 3 sacks. He went to Tennessee for 8 games and didn't register a single sack. So dealt with, and that's part of it. That's this is the first time that he's played a full 16-game season since 2017, where he was a Pro Bowler with the Texans. So it's part of Jadeveon Clowney's story of just him being a little inconsistent. And to be a contender and to invest in it, maybe a 1-year deal, why not? But also giving him $10 million, average annual value is nothing to sneeze at either. So.
I mean, $10 million a year, though, like for a team that's contending to add Clowney for that, I feel like that would be like a steal of a contract. Like that's a middle of the road guard contract at this point. Like the Giants spent more money on John Runyon Jr. from the Packers. To me, it would have been a much better investment doing this for the New York Jets than adding Mike Williams, who's extremely injury prone, and a team that already has a wide receiver 1 in Garrett Wilson, and has Aaron Rodgers, who's notoriously not needed the best wide receiver room to have success.
I'm looking at teams with the most cap space and figuring out who's a contender. The Chargers are the first team that comes up, $32 million. They have 2 edge rushers that they just took a pay cut. The Eagles, they have the most stacked edge room of all time. The Lions,
I feel like that would have been a good fit, having a two-way edge out there.
Bengals and Bears, Packers. Those are the next 3 teams, all in line with slightly over $20 million. So
I don't have any issues with any of those teams not doing it.
Could have made sense, but I just don't, especially when you're talking about, if the question is, how are you grading Jadeveon Clowney's career as a former number 1 pick? I think a guy that, Yeah, he's been close to 10 sacks. He's had 9.5 sacks. So, maybe we'll round. Oh, okay, sure. PFF would round that up to 10. So, so to say that he's never had 10 career sacks is maybe nitpicking a little bit. But I would still say for a number one pick and to have those expectations, and to be on this many teams is kind of like not great. But good for Carolina. Get a good football player in there.
Carolina's not competing, which is why it's a very weird move for me.
Yeah.
Or Atlanta. Like, Atlanta desperately needs pass rush help. Like, this could have been a solid move for Atlanta.
Yeah, you know what? That's a very good call.
Spent a lot of money on Kirk Cousins. So I just think some other team, again, the Jets was the one I look at the most because they were interested in Clowney. They had him in the building and were trying to get a contract done with him, obviously. And they end up not, getting it done, even though they got Mike Williams signed the day before, who has a lot more injury history. And I would bet on Jadeveon Clowney having a good next, season and year after than I would Mike Williams. So
yeah. The Falcons are the good call. They have $6.3 million, so they probably would have had to have a low cap hit this year, and then either make a void year or push money down the line to next year. But which I don't love, but teams do it all the time. So the Falcons
or
are
they
actually
could have not signed Darnell Mooney.
Yeah, that's a good call. I like Darnell Mooney.
We're talking about all these teams at the end of free agency with their cap space. Like, these teams did have cap space, and I like Mooney too. I don't know. Just to me, I think there's teams that are contending that could have used Jadeveon Clowney's services. All right, next question. Tre'Davious White has a new home, signed a 1-year, $10 million deal with the Rams. Interesting signing, or just another NFL move? I was actually interested to have Rose on this because I think the Rams, they made the playoffs last year, and we'll talk about Tre'Davious White, Justin. But let me ask you this. So the Rams have Kyron Williams, a good back. They've obviously got the wide receiver duo of Nacua and Kupp. They've invested a shit ton in their guards. They're going to move Steve Avila to center. Which QB are you taking over Matthew Stafford in the NFC just for the 2024 season?
Just for the 2024 season, huh? Because I'll tell you what, I talked about it on Power Rankings. We talked about it on Talking Giants. Stafford.
You know me, I'm not the biggest Matthew Stafford lover. I think he, a lot of those years in Detroit, he contributed a lot with some bad, interceptions and some inaccurate throws at times. So I think he got a little bit overrated that first year with the Rams. But if we're talking about just the NFC, I don't think I'm taking any QB over Matthew Stafford for 1 year in the NFC.
Yeah, no Hurts anymore, right?
No, Cousins. Hurts is the only one that gives me pause on it.
Yeah, even he dealt with pressure kind of bad to end last year. So Stafford was making.
I think Hurts is going to bounce back and look really good, but I mean, swap their situations. Who does better, Matthew Stafford or Jalen Hurts?
Stafford was making some really he was making MVP throws towards the latter part of last year, where I was like, this is the Matt Stafford that won the Super Bowl, and a lot of people were not talking about it. And yeah, Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp can make you feel really good, and had some convos with Trevor Plouffe. Hey, he's feeling good, and I think having Puka and having Cooper Kupp there really did kind of revitalize his career, where he was legitimately pondering retirement, and now he's kind of like fully back. So I would have to agree with you, man. For 1 year, where we're ignoring age and we're ignoring context and everything like that, obviously I would I would even take Caleb Williams off Chicago. But if we're talking about for 1 year, Matthew Stafford is it 100%. I think I have to agree with you.
Again, and this is coming from someone I have not been someone who's fawned over Matthew Stafford.
You have not.
He contributed to a lot of those issues in Detroit. Now, he did a lot more good than bad there, and you still see it show up at times, right? Where a lot of times when it's why doesn't Matthew Stafford's no look throws get the same attention that Patrick Mahomes? It's because a lot of times they sail and turn their interceptions. They lead to some bad plays too. There's been multiple times where it's no look throw sails over the wide receiver's head right into a safety's chest.
He was really good in that playoff game.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, he outperformed. He outperformed Goff. I thought he had one of the best round one QB performances in the league.
Yeah.
When you go through it. But Tre'Davious White, I like this move. I think the Rams are legitimately going for a Super Bowl in this NFC conference. We just talked about the offense with Stafford. Now you give them a cornerback one. Now Tre'Davious White has to stay healthy, but he's been really, really good for Buffalo. Like the last few years, he's been a guy that offenses avoid. He's had low yardage thrown against him. And then earlier in his career, when he did give up a little more yards, he was someone who got his hands on the ball a ton and was able to get turnovers. So 1 year, $10 million for the Rams. I love this deal for them.
Yeah, I do too, because the upside is tremendous, right? And I think the Rams, they also signed Darius Williams as well, who I love. I mean, he's 5'9", he's really short, but I'm pretty sure he's an outside corner. He has 35 pass deflections over the last 2 years. He spent the last 2 years in Jacksonville, reuniting with the Los Angeles Rams, where he kind of started his career there back in 2018. So the Rams are getting a corner back in Darius Williams that they had before, but with White, the only thing that really gives me pause is that at one point White was on pace for like really, really good, like all Pro Bowl every year kind of career early in his career in Buffalo. But then 2021 suffered a torn ACL after 11 games. He kind of slow played his recovery in 2022. He spent the first 7 weeks on the injury reserve list and then missed 3 more games during that year. And then 2023, now he's coming off of a torn Achilles. So now it's not only, all right, well, can you stay healthy? But also for me, I'm thinking about after all those injuries with an ACL and then a torn Achilles, what is your body like in general for a position that's kind of demanding on your body? Now, here's the positive thing. I did some digging. I read some articles. A big plus for both White and the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams currently employ, I don't know how to say his name, Dr. Neil Atrache, as their team doctor, and Atrache is the surgeon who repaired White's Achilles tendon, and he and White have spent time together since the rehab. So the Rams doctor is the same one who did the surgery on Tre'Davious White. Now they're spending time together rehabbing, and that's according to Adam Schefter. So I guess that's a good sign, is that the Rams had intel on how's this guy's recovering doing. And White visited a couple teams too. The Giants and I think the Titans were some of the other teams that he visited too. So it was the Rams, the Raiders, the Giants, and the Titans. Those were the teams that he visited with.
Yeah, and it's, again, is it a possibility that he gets hurt and he's ineffective? Yeah, but it's a 1 year deal, right? So there's not very much risk on it. It's only $10 million, and I haven't seen the full details of it, but I'm sure there's got to be some type of playing time incentives in there too. And like we said with Matthew Stafford, they're trying to take advantage of having Matthew Stafford, who's 36 years old, who's dealt with injuries in his career. I don't think we envision Stafford being the Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers who plays well into his 40s. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if this was his last year.
Right.
So they lost Aaron Donald, so try and build that defense up piece by piece. They've been really good at drafting guys who are just perfect fits for what their role is going to be. So having Jadeveon come in, be that cornerback one for them, I think is a smart, low-risk move for them.
I agree.
All right. Next, pair of wide receivers on the move. Josh Reynolds goes from Detroit. Josh Reynolds goes from Detroit to the Broncos. Sorry, Pretty Ricky, you were wrong. Rest in peace. And Cordell Patterson leaves Atlanta for Pittsburgh. One, both, or neither do much for you. I know what your answer is going to be. Josh Reynolds, nice player. He's on the Broncos. Probably not going to hear much from him. Cordell Patterson at 33 years old, back with Arthur Smith, I think is going to be somewhat fun to see.
When were they together? Oh, well, obviously Atlanta. Duh, I was going to be like, were they together in Tennessee? Yeah.
Arthur Smith is the one who turned him into a running back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he had that year with 600 yards rushing, 600 yards receiving. Now they got Tyler Algier and then Bijan Robinson, and his role decreased a lot, but I know they have Najee and Warren, but neither one of those guys are wowing you the way that Bijan Robinson does.
And also, I feel like Patterson catching the ball out of the backfield, natural trained receiver early in his career, that's something that could be valuable as well. And I know that this Pittsburgh offense is going to be either heave it 40 yards downfield to George Pickens on the sideline, or it's going to be check it down to a running back in the middle of the field, because that's what Russ did. That's what Russ did last year with the Broncos. It's with Cortland Sutton. So yeah, I mean, I'll talk a little bit about Josh Reynolds. I feel like that's an underrated guy. Yeah, in a good system, in a good situation with Detroit. But I like the fit with the Broncos as well. It's a guy that I think he can run routes kind of well. He's all
It's
right.
just we're never going to hear about Josh Reynolds on the Denver Broncos.
No. So I like the move for the Broncos, but like, are we going to be talking about week 4 about how Josh Reynolds is really making the difference for the Broncos? Probably not. But Cordell Pat, I want to do. I think by the time
I know we have some Lions fans that listen.
Yeah.
Do they hate Josh Reynolds for the drop?
Should.
But it's such a weird thing when a guy's been like a good contributing player, but he has like such a low moment like that costs you. Do you hate him? Like, I wonder if Lions fans are like celebrating him being gone.
Should. Also, it gives more time and more shine for my guy Khalif Raymond. That's honestly who I'm excited for.
The Lions need to. I feel like they need to improve at wide receiver, right? Like neither one of us are big Jameson Williams. I wasn't a fan of him coming out of the draft.
Pretty sure the Lions aren't even Jameson Williams fans.
Yeah, it's very funny the way they draft guys and then don't love them as much. And obviously Jameson Williams has contributed to that with some other he got suspended and there's some other minor issues, but he at least gives you like a big play threat, so he's good for that. But they. You have Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's Mr. Third Down. He's great, but I feel like a true like X wide receiver could take that Lions offense to another level with the offensive line. But I mean, they're going to be fine offensively.
Yeah.
When you have that offensive line, you have Goff running the Ben Johnson offense, and then you have Amon-Ra St. Brown. So they'll be fine. But I feel like an X wide receiver could take them to another level.
And the last thing I want to say about Patterson, like Cordell Patterson, I want to try and get into like, doing like some video essay like type of videos. And Cordell Patterson is on the list of what a fascinating career of special teamer, wide receiver, running back, and then 2022 has like that renaissance year. And for a guy that is kind of like, it's kind of meh overall as a player. Like I still think special teams could be his biggest possible strength. Kind of meh as a player, but every year is in high demand. Like he's just signed people want him every year. Awesome.
I had highlight clips ready to go in 2021 when the Giants started signing him.
Joe Judge wanted him. Yeah.
Speaking of his return ability, Justin, the NFL changed some damn rules again. They added the new XFL kickoff, and they banned the hip drop tackle. I changed my mind on the return thing. At first, I was like, I don't like change.
Mm-hmm.
But so I'm fine with that. It's going to look a little goofy, but it is what it is. It's not going to look like the game that we love, but it's fine. It doesn't change the games really. The hip drop tackle, the NFL already admitted what this fucking bullshit is. It drives me fucking insane. And they admitted it. They said it's going to be hard to call on the field, but we just wanted to get on the books so we can handle punishment later in the week.
Who said that?
Because I can find
Ian
it.
Rappaport tweeted it out, but he said this person said it. But what's that person's title?
I'm gonna find it. It's such fucking bullshit. They steal from the players. Like it drives me nuts. They did it last year, where like they had running backs just running hard, and then they would come on Saturday. They would like this guy Saquon Barkley's fine. This Miles Sanders is fine. This Derrick Henry's been fine. This. And then they just fine them, and there's nothing they could do because the NFLPA stinks. They don't do anything good they don't help their players out. I tweeted at Jason Penik, who's like, how am I going to be able to get, like, how are they going to call this? And I told him, they're not going to call this in games. You'll get this called a handful of times in games. It's not going to be changing much in the games, but what they're going to do is they're going to go and steal. They're going to go on Friday, they're going to review it, and then they are going to steal from the NFL players by finding them. It's Rich McKay. So who is Rich McKay? Rich McKay said, Google that while I read the quote.
You got
Rich
it.
McKay says, do we have a problem? The answer was yes. This will be a hard one to call on the field. You have to see every element of it. We want to make it a rule so we can deal on the discipline during the week, which is, again, we're not going to call this penalty in games. We're just going to find the players later on in the week.
He's the CEO of the Atlanta Falcons.
Get fucked, Rich McKay.
I agree with you because this was the first thought that I had. A lot of people
knew that this was what it was going to happen too.
Yeah, I mean, a lot, and this is the hip drop tackle is a new form of tackling. It's not like this has been happening for years in the NFL and they're taking another element of the game that we love and they're taking the violent element out of it. I'm pretty sure this is a new form of tackling in the NFL. But it opens up a Pandora's box of, I couldn't believe it last year, Bobby. Couldn't believe it. Tom Pelissero on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, whenever. The list, it was a list of players. $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 for simple football plays with no malicious intent involved. I think this opens up a whole Pandora's box of what the NFL could do to players after the game. And, in between, Monday to Saturday of the next game of the next week. That's what it does. Because the hip drop tackle, they said it happens once a game, and there were about 15 plays out of the 230 or something that led to injuries. Okay, so you're going to ban that, and it's a 15-yard penalty. All right, so how many 15-yard penalties do we see on Sunday? Adding one more per game, if that is the case, adding one more per game isn't going to change my life completely, and it's not going to make me hate the game that I'm watching. But what continues to really bother me is what the NFL is doing. They are robbing money from their players.
They've tripled the amount of fines that they've given out from 2021 to 2023. Triple. I mean, we saw it was just flat out run for offensive players, just running through a guy, not
offensive
taking their
players
head down
too.
And diving. Like, I understand with the helmet stuff, right? But at some point, like, this is a game of football, and there's going to be injuries and a violent element to it. Like, it's for the first time, all the people are like, this is going to turn the flag football. It's like, oh my gosh, are they right? Because this is truly they're not going to stop here. Like, there's going to be a next thing, and we'll just see what that is, and then we'll suck it up and deal with it. So, yeah, I was pretty frustrated with that.
I will say about can I move to the kickoff really quick?
Yeah.
I will say about the kickoff. For the full rules, here's how I think it's gonna work, and here we go. Ready for this, Justin? Ready for this, guys? Kicker's gonna be kicking off from the 35. You have defenders that are gonna be lining up on the 40-yard line on the other side of the field, and then you have a minimum of 9 players that are gonna be on the setup zone between the 35-yard line and the 30-yard line on the opposite side of the field where the kicker's kicking from. And then you're going to have it's probably going to be two players in what's called the landing zone inside the 20-yard line. And the ball has to be kicked within the inside of the 20-yard line. If it's a touchback, here's what they're changing from the XFL. If it's a touchback in the XFL, the ball would be placed at the 35. The one thing that the owners changed from the XFL rules is that if the ball is a touchback now, it will be placed at the 30-yard line, which I think that's fair. Like, I think that is fair. Like, giving the team 35 yards, that would basically mean every single kick is going to return. I still think that we're going to see a fair amount of touchbacks. They're still moving up that touchdown that touchback marker up 5 additional yards. And the receiver, the returner has to field the ball. You can't just let the ball bounce in the end zone, or if you have to make sure that it goes out of bounds. If it lands in the end zone, it's a live ball. You have to pick it up or you have to down it. And there is no fair catch inside the 10-yard line or whatever yard line anymore. Bobby, at least for the first couple weeks of the season, I'm not going to say the whole year, I'm watching kickoffs, and I'm enticed by what's going to happen. I am really looking forward to a smart NFL special teams mind.
We lost Bill. It sucks.
That's going to find something that is innovative, that is fun, that is going to lead to a competitive advantage for that team. I'm excited to find what that is going to be, because somebody is going to do it, and then it's going to be a copycat league, and then everybody's going to follow it. You saw, the one play that we saw a million times was during the XFL game where he had the guy that he did the lateral, or they did the reverse basically. Like, that's fun. We're going to see that type of shit, and if it works, it's going to be so fun. It's going to be so exciting. At least for the first couple weeks of the season, a play where I hated special teams. I hated kickoffs because it's just we're wasting time, because you would have a commercial break, there would be a kickoff, and then sometimes there would be another commercial break, or it would just be 2 minutes of just, all right, you know this ball's going to go in the back of the end zone. You know nothing is going to happen here, so we're wasting time. We're going from something that I hated that was a waste of time where no action would happen to the potential for there to be action. And I like that. So I'm locked in for at least the first couple weeks of the season to see what it could be.
Yeah, it's going to look goofy, but it'll be interesting to see. So I'm going to save the truth or lie stuff for when we have Rose. That's he thought of all those. So we'll wait till we have Rose. We're at 45 minutes anyway. So that's an episode. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks, Mike, for producing. Thank you, Justin Penik. You'll be glad you did. We will see you guys next Tuesday. Until then, bye.
Let's go football.